Could we let the other group go? Because don't like we're gonna get to them tonight. It's 10:19, and can we?
The other group? Which group are you
Yeah, we
talking?
got another somebody else on the agenda that is waiting because the
Mill
chair
River
say that
Collaborative.
they would go in line. So since we just late, can we just stop and make a motion to send that back to committee? I mean to steering and let them go and
Uh,
continue the conversation. I don't know what the
Chair,
position is, but
Chair Matheny, I have some
Yeah,
information about that.
sure. Go ahead.
Um, I did during this discussion try to get in touch with the chair or the head of Mill River Park, Nitty Compton, to find out, what would be too late. I don't know if she's listening right now. I see Mill River Collaborative on. Um, I I mean, if she can't make it, we could just hold the item at the end, or if it's too late, I can try to reach out to her if you would like. I can call her.
I
She's
I,
on.
I think Miss Compton is on right now.
She's on.
Sorry, Nina, I didn't see your my phone went to silent mode at 10, so I didn't see your text. Sorry.
So if we want to continue on with this current subject, um, uh, correct me if I'm wrong. If I say if there are no objections, we could with the committee we could recommit Ms. Compton's item until to steering. Is that appropriate, Ms. Rosenson?
I think that's fine. It's a review item.
Okay. So if the
yes,
committee has no objections, we will recommit this item. We don't have to take a vote on that, correct?
Well, typically you would, but you can also, if there's no objection, we can just say it's unanimous. But if someone wants to make a motion to do it, that would be cleaner.
Oh,
motion to approve by voice vote.
Second.
The motion is to recommit item 2 to steering.
Yes.
Yes. I think
okay.
that's
We
what
have a motion and a second. We take a voice vote. All those in favor to recommit.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that
Thank you
item.
for your patience.
Thanks.
Hanging in
Yeah,
there with us tonight.
I
Thank
learned
you.
a lot. I found it super fascinating, so I didn't mind waiting around.
Thank you.
we'll see you next month.
All
All
right,
right.
thanks. Thanks.
You should come hang out with us more often.
You just let me know when. I'm around.
All day with her today.
It's true. Yeah, we had the whole day together. Well, thank you all so much. Keep going.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Before I go to Representative Grunberger, Ms. Blake, you've been patiently waiting. Would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, there were several points that the commissioners brought up that I wanted to respond to, and I'll do it all at once. Boy, you guys asked all the right questions and really, really good pointed ones too. To Commissioner Mays,
You muted yourself. There you go.
oh dear. Okay.
Oh, dear.
Oh yes, I see. What I wanted to say is that all of the papers that have been mentioned, certainly in my slides and anybody else's, and any of the papers that have been referred to by Environmental Health Trust, are all peer reviewed. Most of them highly rigorously. Certainly mine. We were really put through our paces by peer reviewers on that. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is the issue of cell phones against the head having the stronger exposure versus a distant transmitter. This is as complicated as it gets with this area of science. As a science journalist, what I can tell you is that, and I've read thousands of papers at this point because I've been at this for well over 30 years. Something turns up in the bioelectromagnetics literature that I never see in other areas of health reporting, and that has to do with nonlinear effects. Nonlinear effects, you'll recognize as a tech engineer yourself. Nonlinear effects when it comes to biology, means that the strongest physical reactions can happen at the lowest intensity exposures. That's where far field exposures actually are equally as dangerous in some capacities as near field exposures are to the head. So I just wanted to cue you to that. Also, to Kent's Chamberlain's a description of different radiation patterns. If you go to the findings of fact in the Pura thing that I'm sure that you've taken a look at, you can actually see exactly what he's demonstrating with the Shipan Valley model. You can see that the exposures are actually lower at the 30-foot increment than they are at the 80-foot increment at that residence door. So that's a very well illustrated point that you can actually see in the materials. Having to do with research, like I said, I've been at this since forever, and I've worked with several congressional offices on research appropriations for exactly what it is that you're describing. We never got around to broadband because it's just so complicated. But I worked with Senator Leahy's office for a number of years on research appropriations to hand over to or to have conducted by the National Institutes of Health. And invariably, those bills would never make it out of the Commerce Committee, and they were often just killed from the top by representatives who were unfortunately taking a lot of money from the industry. So I have direct experience with that. And to Commissioner Goldberg, I wanted to say that if you turn this down, you might very well end up in court, but hopefully you'll end up in the right federal courts. And if you make the right arguments, you can actually win this, and you can actually overturn some of the precedents that are tying your hands now, because they're very, very vulnerable given the state of the information that exists now. But the right arguments would have to be made. So those were my comments, and I just want to congratulate this board on just tremendous due diligence when it comes to this so far. And in the very least, you will have that to point to if you do end up in court. You'll be able to point to all of us and to this hearing tonight as an illustration of your due diligence. So that's going to be in your favor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Blake. Representative Grumberger?
Thank you, Representative. I want to recognize and thank Representative David Michel for bringing together so many superstar expert humanists. David, as some of you know, is a tireless worker on behalf of the environment here. And I'm not afraid of becoming a national case. In fact, I think that's a wonderful idea. We found out that our water is in fact clean, even though we had a Love Canal situation in North Stamford before. And we also know that our air is polluted. And we're beginning to talk about doing something about that with a tiny grant and hopefully do more. But I take a precautionary approach. And by precautionary, for those of you who don't know, what that means that if a product or action or policy has a suspected risk of causing harm to the public or to the environment, protective action should be supported before there is complete scientific proof of a risk. So I think that it's pretty clear that this is a horrible, horrible risk, and especially for those with compromised immune systems. And that we know that while I love, two of my colleagues who have spoken, one clearly, was a consultant for telecoms, and the other, I want to tell him that I'm an expert in certain things, or I'm a specialist in other things, and I can research other things, but I believe in professionalism. People like, Blake, you've read thousands of articles. You people are we're getting world-class advice here. I would just urge you or ask you if we go down this road, and I'd love to go down this road, if you'll come along with us and give us the support that we need. To Attorney, I guess Smith is the only one on the line now. Given this information, doesn't this set the city up for lawsuits? We're so worried about lawsuits, being sued for not taking this. Doesn't this set this up for a lawsuit if someone were to be recognized with illness?
I suppose one could make that theory, although I think that there are defenses that municipalities have that individuals don't have, and for what it's worth, the agreement provides that the carriers will indemnify the cities in certain circumstances.
Well, let me ask the same question of Ken. What do you think? What's your response to that?
Indemnify, how do you do that when insurance companies won't do it? Would you self-indemnify? I think that's what may potentially the bigger risk. There are lawsuits already, but that people are filing against municipalities because of their being harmed by cell phone radiation and cell tower radiation. So I think that it goes both ways. There's another thing, and that is with asbestos, going back there, it was discovered to be a risk. People got mesothelioma. I can't even say it right. It's getting late. And so they would sue like a school system as an example, and they would get compensated through the insurance company. One thing that's happening here, because no insurance company will insure against wireless radiation harm, then who's going to be liable? Who's got the deep pocket? So it's going to go to the city. So I think that it's a double-edged sword, would be my point there.
And Blake, can you react to that too? Blake?
Is usually for things like towers falling over or hitting people on the heads, or in emergency situations when cell coverage goes down, people in emergency situations experiencing some sort of damage. They're almost universally not for health claims if they're in compliance with the FCC. That's sort of the handshake that they do when it comes to that. If they're in compliance with the FCC, they would assumed to be held harmless for these exposures, which does not necessarily mean that they're not happening, and it also doesn't necessarily mean that a case couldn't be made, given the inadequacy of the standards and the high bar of thermal effects that couldn't be proven. There have been several cell phone cases that have unfortunately not been successful. It's very, very difficult to prove cause and effect with one small cell, and one brain tumor. I mean, that's an almost impossible bar to meet in tort law. There's a wealth of case law in one of the in the 2000 forum that the Berkshire Litchfield Environmental Council held. We had the director from the Federal Communications Commission, a director of the microwave frequency bands, and we also had a former FCC attorney who were speakers there. And in my book, Cell Towers, Wireless Convenience, Environmental Hazard, all of those talks are there. As a matter of fact, we actually had the director of the Connecticut Siting Council, the executive director, who was Joel Reingold at the time, was one of our speakers. All of those presentations are in the Cell Towers book. That came out in 2000, but you can see the fundamental backbone of how these legal cases were initially built. The information is available. There's a lot of really interesting case law in this, and a lot of good arguments that have been made. Yours could be unique, and it really could effectively overturn the provision of Section 704 in the Telecommunications Act if it was argued correctly. Fundamentally, the argument is that the Second Circuit that ruled in the cell phone task force case, that was the one that gave deference to the federal level, that was, I believe, tried in the early 2000s. That case very specifically maps out the fact that the FCC has the EPA and other agencies to rely on for advice at the exact same time that the EPA's research labs were being defunded. Back at that time, there is no one who's really advising the FCC on this any longer. Therefore, the cell phone task force case could be overturned. But anyway, that's the subject of a different kind of conversation. The law is there, and there's some really interesting things that could happen with it.
Right.
May I elaborate on my answer about the indemnification?
Go ahead.
I would, when you get the chance, I would draw your attention to Section 10 of the agreement, which provides that the carriers will defend and indemnify the cities for all the claims arising out of the acts or omissions of a carrier in the performance of the activities permitted by this agreement and or the installation, operation, maintenance, repair, and or removal of the facilities, unless the damages are caused by the negligence or willful misconduct of the city. Now, one could, I suppose, posit a set of facts where the city acts in a negligent or willful misconduct. But I think in most cases, the city would be protected, even if the insurance, even if the carriers are not insured. The companies that you're dealing with, AT&T and Verizon, if nothing else, have deep pockets.
Yeah, from my point of view,
Yes,
I don't. Go
yes,
ahead.
indeed. Yes, indeed, they do. The question to ask AT&T and Verizon are who are their insurance carriers and ask to see what they specifically indemnify for. They talk about the operation of their systems. Again, if they're in compliance with the FCC regulations, they assume that they will be held harmless. That's not necessarily true.
Perhaps the same protection would extend to the municipalities who relied on both the carriers and the FCC.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope. Let's hope that that's the case. I've never seen a contract in which a municipality, and I've seen many, has actually been fully indemnified against health damage. When they talk about willful damage on the city's part, they're talking about you banging into their facilities with snowplows and things like that. They're also talking about rights of way not being shoveled out or cleared, or things that's what they have in mind. They don't have health effects in mind. Generally, that's my experience.
And we know if we have firsthand evidence here. We had Purdue Pharma in our town, and how many millions of people had their lives destroyed because people are trying to sell certain products. So for me, it's as one of my colleagues always says, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I don't see a 5G emergency in this town. That we have many other problems that we need to solve, but I don't think we should back away from some threat of any kind of a lawsuit because someone's in a hurry to do something. But I have another question, Attorney Smith. Can you clarify how many antennas is the contract allowing AT&T to install in Stanford?
There is no numerical limit.
That's the point. So if there's no number stipulated, could it be hundreds?
I suppose if they believed that it was in their economic interest to do that, they could apply.
Okay, so back to Blake. The question is that once if people said they were putting so much power into one antenna, what would stop them from going back a month, a year, a day later and adding more power without informing any of us? And I think once this ship has sailed, then we're up for anything. And people with compromised systems are going to get sick, and who's going to know it? I don't really, like technology just for the sake of technology. If there's substantial risk, I think that I'd go back to the precautionary approach. So I think that I encourage my fellow board members to deny this, and I think we should, if in fact we have to be a test case, I think we should be a test case. And I just am asking, Kent and Blake and whoever else is still on the call, if you'll go down this road with us, if we go down this road.
I can only speak for myself, but it depends on how much abuse I'm willing to stand at any given point in time.
Right. No,
that's a maybe. It depends on your legal arguments. I'm not going to waste my time, in other words, any more than you're going to waste yours.
No, I believe in expertise again, so I wouldn't make the arguments. We'd look at you and Kent and others to make the arguments for us.
I would say Joe Sandry would be your guy.
And Joe, okay, thank you. And I don't know, Jen, how we do this, but maybe we should move the question because it seems like people have made up their minds unless other people want to speak because it is 10:30.
You
Yeah.
can't move a question in committee, I'm sorry.
Okay, I don't want to move. Okay, so
excuse me, it's Bert Rosenberg.
Bring it back.
I would like to ask that this matter be continued until the November meeting for the following reasons.
Yeah.
Here are my
I saw the
number
floor,
one.
right? I have the floor.
Yes.
You can just bond in. Yeah. Okay. So I'm really worried about that, and I anticipated this because David has assembled this incredible, superstar team, and I don't want it to get diluted. This is the common thing. I did environmental work in the state of Rhode Island in the 70s, and this was a common theme where people would put things off and put things off with a strategic idea that worked. And then we were suing on behalf of the environment and not on behalf of people who had actually been harmed. And we don't want to dilute things. We have this team here with us, and I want to vote on this tonight.
Madam Chairman, if I can have the floor, I'd like to be heard, please. It's
I
Attorney
want to make him
Rosen.
the floor. I want to make him the floor. If he wants to respond, he can respond.
Oh, yeah. Are you, is this, and then you're giving you're coming up the floor, Representative Goldberg?
No, I'm Grunberger.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Grunberger. It's getting late. I apologize.
That's right. I'd like to ask you how we could actually vote on this tonight. What I don't want to do is to hold this. And if we have to vote on whether or not we have to hold this, then I do not want to hold this. And I'm sure the Representative Sherwood has something to say about this too.
That would be depending on the.
Madam Chair,
So,
I'd like to be heard, Madam.
Rosenberg, I apologize. So, Representative Grunberger,
I'll yield to Nina, and she can take the floor for me, but I reserve the right to speak if needed later.
So there's two more hands up on the committee, so let me go through those first, Attorney Rosenberg, and then I'll give you a chance. So the next one in line is Representative Adams. Go ahead, you have the floor.
I guess my question is, well, I guess a comment. 3 or 4 years ago, the economic development came in front of us, and there was a conversation about self-driving cars coming to Stanford to be tested in Stanford to generate new business to Stanford for jobs and to help develop this new technology for new jobs for our kids. And I think this cell towers is a result of that. And I'm asking you, if this don't happen, would we be able to drive self-driving cars with existing towers that is miles away? Anybody would like to answer that? Maybe Ms. Blake, because I think you mentioned that this type of cells is for self-driving cars. And I think that was the intent 3 or 4 years ago when our economic development went out and did a research and tried to bring this technology to Stanford. So if it did came, a lot of jobs would come with it. Kids help program the cars, making it safe, developing what to do and what not to do. Now, the question to you guys, if we don't do this, will the towers that existed be able to self-drive these cars from the distance that they are?
I'm sorry,
I don't quite understand. Are you asking if there's going to be enough coverage if you don't sign this proposal, and newcomers don't?
Yeah, I'm asking you that the towers that exist that now just do the phones and the computers will, if that technology comes to Stanford, will they be able to support self-driving cars if we pick downtown Stanford, Landis Street, Treasure Boulevard to the south end and come back? Will the existing technology that's in place now will be able to implement that?
the existing, and Ken can answer this as well. The existing technology can handle a great deal. You've already got self-driving cars that are out there. They rely on a different technology that's inherent, I think, mostly to the cars and remote sensing devices. I don't know if you want to address this, Kent, but 4G Lite is handling a majority of the cell traffic these days. One of the other things that's happening is that there's tremendous competition between the cable TV providers and the wireless providers. The cable TV providers are the ones that are primarily stringing the majority of the fiber optic cable throughout our neighborhoods these days. Most of those companies offer bundled services. You'll see with things like Charter and Optimum and the other service providers. You'll see that they're offering mobile capacity to their customers. They're hanging what are called and Kent and Joe can talk about this. They're hanging what are called femtocells. They're fairly small, directly on the cable, and they're bypassing both Pura and things like the Siting Council by hanging it directly on their existing cable. Now, what that means, and they have handshakes with each other, and it's different providers that they have the contracts with. So, for instance, with Optimum, their contract is with T-Mobile, and so if you sign on with Optimum, if that's your cable provider, then you've got mobile capacity as well. And as you move into non-Optimum territory, it might, depending on their contracts, be able to hand off with AT&T that, for instance, might be working with Charter. So you've already got probably ubiquitous mobile coverage out there. What you don't necessarily have is the marketing rah-rah that's behind 5G, which was primarily a Wall Street model to really line their investor pockets and startup companies, and that's what it is that caused Connecticut to declare itself the first 5G state. They didn't really even recognize what they were declaring themselves. They thought that it was, just a very progressive pro-tech direction to go in without realizing what they were fully setting in motion. And so you've got a lot of things at play at any given time. You won't have 5G capacity, but you don't really have it now. 5G capacity, like I said before, is machine-to-machine communication. It's not just about self-driving cars. A lot of it is depends on massive data services that are going to be required by various corporations, and it is getting late, so I'm losing my train of thought here. A lot of the major computer cloud storage areas are plugged into 5G types of technology. It's very much of an evolving area, Commissioner Adams, and there's no real answer in terms of, if we build it, will they come? If you build it, they will come. It's just a question of when. If you don't build it, they might come anyway. So they'll just come to different neighborhoods under individual applications rather than a broad proposal that gives them this kind of entree into your public rights of way. That's really what the proposal is about. So pay closer attention to the broad brush that is behind this proposal and to whose advantage that is. It might not necessarily be the cities. Sorry for the long answer. I'm tired.
Yeah. I wasn't aware because I know when the economic development director was talking about this, that we did not have the technology to even run the self-driving cars in Stanford. So if you saying it exists, I don't know if it exists in Stanford. And the reason that it was going to be put in.
Do you want a self-driving car?
Well, I would like for our kids to be able to work on these cars and figure out the technology and create the program to make these cars operate. Because, we didn't want electric cars, but we got them and they advanced it. So we got self-driving cars that maybe wind up to be cabs, or I can take older people to the doctor without having a driver. the technology present itself. I mean, all well and good.
Well, okay. I mean, I understand that perspective. Tesla has self-driving cars, and they're notorious for accidents. And Elon Musk just assumes that failure is, unfortunately, human lives have been lost. But his approach is that this is collateral damage on the way to perfecting technology. So it'll come eventually. It'll be here. It's not necessarily going to have to be 5G. It can be through remote sensing devices that are inherent to different automobile models, the way Tesla is. So
yeah, but that means that
it's not going to hold you back. It's not going to hold you back. Not well, at least not for long.
Okay, but that means that the bigger players is the one that would only want to be in the game. So other these small guys is trying to get into the towers now won't be able to be in a competitive market in this area. So if you're saying
it was kind of ever thus. It was ever thus with small players trying to get into larger arenas like this, and even if they did get into the larger arenas, the pattern of corporate America these days would be consolidation, and the larger guys would buy them out anyway. So,
okay, all right, thank you.
Representative Adams, are you?